So I've been wanting to cover football again, but with my schedule and stuff, I wasn't able to. Now my schedule's back. I've changed a few things around a little bit, and I feel like I can cover it again. So another reason why I also didn't want to cover it is because the day after I uploaded a video saying I was going to start covering the NFL again, my TV broke. And so, in the interest of full disclosure, I have not actually seen a single football game this year. These are just all the news stories that have been flooding my feed. Greetings and welcome to the Fan Perspective. I am your host Nathan Lau, and this is NFL Weekly, the show where I recap some of the last week's action and look ahead to a little bit of next week's action. I took this format from my coverage of basketball with the NBA and the WNBA, so this is an experiment. We'll see how well this works. First of all, the Eagles and the Redskins had a hell of a game. It was so intense. You could almost think that these guys didn't like each other. Drew Brees was wrapped up and slammed into the ground, and he immediately got up and shoved the guy away. He seemed pissed, and honestly, I was laughing the whole time. I always find it funny when a quarterback goes after somebody else, especially a diminutive guy like Brees. I mean, dude, you're a QB, you get your revenge on the scoreboard. You let your big old 300-pound offensive lineman do all the pushing and shoving for you, okay? And speaking of QBs, you had a few of them showing off their versatility. You had Andy Dalton, who caught a pass and then broke a tackle, taking it 17 yards for a touchdown. And AJ Hoop. And then you also had a couple other QBs catching passes as well. Russel Wilson caught a pass, and Johnny Manziel caught like a 40-yard pass, which was taken away because of an illegal shift penalty. It's amazing. The NFL has been so competitive this year. Everybody is beating each other up. After week 3, the Bengals are the only team in the AFC still undefeated, while in the NFC, the Eagles and Cardinals are the only teams without a loss so far. Meanwhile, we got the Bucks, the Jags, and the Raiders, who, after an 0-3 start to the season, your playoff hopes are over. A moment of silence. Now, there were a lot of injuries throughout the NFL, so many of them that I just don't feel like covering them all. So I'm just going to point out that Danny Woodhead, the running back for the San Diego Chargers, and Dennis Pitta, a tight end for the Ravens, they are both listed as out for the season. And so now we'll move on to the fantasy section, which, let's talk about the Chargers really quick, because Ryan Matthews is already injured, shocker, and Danny Woodhead now out for the season. It's suspected that Donald Brown is going to be the premier back for the Chargers for the foreseeable future. I say foreseeable future because Ryan Matthews is only supposed to be out a month. Supposed to be. People have been telling me for like 2 years he's actually going to make it through this whole season without getting injured. I'm waiting for that to happen. Speaking of which, I always find it funny that Jamal Charles always goes like top 3 when in the fantasy drafts when, for the life of me, I can't remember him ever actually playing an entire 16-game season. There were doubts about whether or not he played this week. If supposedly he was questionable, people were saying he would, or some people were saying he wouldn't. Either way, I put Niall Davis in my starting lineup. I got 17 points. Well, he got me 17 points. I had like 130 on the game. A lot of my guys just had big games. Like Jeremy Maclin, he had 21 points. Maclin's just in general an underrated receiver, especially in fantasy world. I've had him on my, like the last 3 years in a row that I have had him on my fantasy team. And especially this year, it's really paying off. Well, I should say the last 3 years that I played fantasy, because I skipped fantasy football last year. And I think he was injured most of that season too. But whenever I play fantasy football, I usually end up getting Macklin on my team, and he usually does pretty well for me. It's good to listen to the experts, because sometimes they do know what they're talking about, because they're the ones who pointed me to Niall Davis. I had no idea who he was, but I grabbed him, and he ends up getting me 17 points. But at the same time, for some strange reason, Peyton Manning was projected to get more points than Andrew Luck, even though Peyton Manning was playing the Seahawks and Andrew Luck was playing the Jaguars. I played to the matchup. Luck got me 30. So there's that. Sometimes you can go with the experts, sometimes you got to trust your gut, and sometimes you got to play with the matchup. It's up to you which one you do. But let me just say this, if your offensive player is going up against the Jags, start him with confidence. If you have a defense that's going up against either Oakland or Tennessee, you should probably put that one in there. So looking ahead to next week, we've got our first round of bye weeks. The Cardinals, the Bengals, the Browns, the Broncos, the Seahawks, and the Rams are all out of action next week. And so this Thursday, you've got the Giants versus the Redskins, a divisional rivalry, which is usually worth it. But at the same time, both of these teams are just fighting to prove they're not the worst team in their division. Then on Sunday, you've got the 1 o'clock slate. You've got a lot of games. The ones that stick out to me, you've got the Packers at the Bears. And just because division rivalries, they're usually always fun. Then you've got the Titans, who just got whooped so badly going into Indianapolis to play the Colts, who just had a dominating win. You kind of have to figure that both of those statements are still going to be true next week. Honestly, out of all of these games, the one that sticks out to me most is Panthers at Ravens, mostly just because I like watching Cam Newton play. Then you got 3-4 o'clock games, Jags at Chargers, Eagles at 49ers, Falcons at Vikings, and then on Sunday night it's the Saints at the Cowboys, Monday night Patriots at the Chiefs. Wow, I don't want to watch any of these. Just about all of these seem like they'll probably be one-sided except maybe the Saints at Cowboys. That one seems like it might be the most interesting matchup out of all of them. The Cowboys actually started 2-1 this year, but that doesn't matter because they're going to finish 8-8. Well, that's it for this week. Join me next Tuesday for another all-new edition of NFL Weekly. Hopefully, maybe. I don't know yet. But until then, this has been The Fan Perspective. I'm your host, Nathan Nile. Have a good week.